All right. Hello, everybody. 1, 2. Okay. Check, check, check. Okay, if you can't hear me, let me know. I think it's working. Cool. All right. Today I'm going to be going over the circle of fifths, right? And I know that it's an area of confusion for a lot of people. And if you are just starting out in music in general, you've probably at least heard of the circle of fifths, but you might not understand what it is or how to use it. It's used not just for guitar players, but in any area of music, you can use the circle of fifths. So what I want to do for you is explain it. I don't want to go over every aspect of the circle of fifths because there's a lot of ways to use it. But what I want to do is explain it for you on how you can use it for the guitar. What are some practical uses for the circle of fifths when you're playing the guitar? Okay. In fact, I used it today. Okay, so I want to explain how I use it and you know the uses that I have for it, because honestly, all the things that you can do with the circle of fifths, I don't even go into all of that stuff in terms of practically using it. Okay, so I'm going to be going over a little bit of music theory with you, because you have to understand at least a little bit of music theory to understand what I'm talking about today. Okay, so I included a link in the chat to this diagram, and so you can download that. If you're watching the replay, I'll have that link in the description of the video down below. So you can get this. If you don't want this one, you just Google search circle of fifths and you'll find a diagram similar to this. Okay, so basically what we have is we have this circle. Okay, and it's got different notes all the way around, and then we also have minor keys in the middle. Now you'll notice that they're not in order. You know, if you look at a piano, you have A through G, you know, according to the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you have also the sharps in there as well. But this is not in that order. It's kind of jumbled around. So I want to explain to you why it's in this particular order. It's pretty easy because it's called the circle of fifths, and that gives it away. So what we're doing is we're putting this in order of fifths. And so if you were to look at a piano like this, let's take the key of C because that's the easiest. The key of C, the scale of C has no sharps. Okay, so we're just going C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then we're back at C again. So it's all the white keys on the piano. So if we look at that, we have C, D, E, F, and then G is the fifth note of the scale. Okay, and so if you look at the circle of fifths, you have C here, and then the next key over, the next note over is G, which is the fifth note. Okay, so that's why it's called the circle of fifths, because G is the fifth from C, D is the fifth from G, A is the fifth from D, and so on across this whole circle. Okay, so that's why it's called the circle of fifths, because we're going a fifth away from this key. Now, why are we doing that? Why does that matter? The reason is because the fifth note of a scale is the most common interval that we're going to come across. Okay, if you look at chords, chords typically are made up of three notes: the first, the third, and the fifth. Now, depending on if it's a major or a minor, that middle third is going to change. So it could be the major third or the minor third, but that perfect fifth is always there. Okay, so that fifth is very, very common in music. That relationship between the root and the fifth note is very common in music. Okay, even when you're looking at chords. So when you're switching from, you know, when you're playing chords, the most common chord progression is going to be from the first to the fifth chord, and then maybe back to the first or something like that. There are some songs that only use two chords, and it's the root and the fifth. So that is going to be the most commonly seen progression or combination is the first and the fifth, the root and the fifth. So that's why the circle of fifths is there, because that's going to be the it's the most common combination that we see. So what this does at the bare minimum is show you the fifth. Okay, it shows you what the fifth note is in any scale. So if we're in the E scale down here, then we know the fifth is going to be the B, right? The B note. So now we could use that. Let's say if we're writing songs, we can look at this and know that, okay, if I'm trying to write music, the first thing I'm gonna do is try a transition from E to B, because that's gonna be the most common. It's gonna sound the most natural, because you'll find that in a lot of music. Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier that chords are made up of the first, third, and fifth. So where is that third at in this circle of fifths? Okay. Well, if you were to count three ticks away from, if we think of this as a clock, and each one of these is a tick, we're gonna count 3 ticks away from the root. So if we're looking at C, we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and then E right here is gonna be your third. So C is the root, E is the third, and G we know is the fifth, because this is a circle of fifths. So if we basically knock out 3 ticks from the root that we're looking at, going clockwise, that's going to be your third. So we could do that with any of these. So if we're looking at D and we knock out 3, F sharp is going to be our third, our major third for D. Okay. So if we're looking at trying to make a major chord, the basic major chord, we can do that just by looking at the circle of fifths. So a D major is going to be D, F sharp, and A. Okay. C major is going to be C, E, and G. Cool. So we can use that, very easily that way. Now, one thing real quick to point out, if you don't have this handy, there's one easy way, I guess you could say it's the easiest way to write this out real quick. Let's say you're in the woods and you want to play some Kumbaya and you brought your guitar, and for some reason you need the circle of fifths. What you can do is you can go counterclockwise, and you know that 12 o'clock is going to be C. That is where you start in music, right? Is C. And so if we go 1 to the left, you have F. You just have to memorize that. But then after that, you have the word bead. Okay. So you have B-E-A-D, and they're all flats. So you have C, you have F, and then you have bead, and then you have F sharp, and then you have the word bead again, B-E-A-D, and then it ends with G. So that's one way to remember this this circle, is to go counterclockwise. You have C, F, and then bead flat, F sharp, and then bead natural, and then G. Okay, but to keep things even easier, just get the diagram so you don't have to memorize that. Cool. Okay, so far we've learned that the circle of fifths is talking about the fifth. These are the fifth note away, and that is useful when you're writing music. It's also useful to find the third if you want, and so you can find those combinations that way. Okay. Now, real quick, let me make sure I didn't miss anything before I go to the next topic here. Yep. So we can look at this. So you can look at this circle of fifths as either individual notes. So we're looking at the C note, and we can form chords with it, like the major. So C, E, and G. We can look at them as individual notes. Or we can look at them as chords. So if we're, like I was mentioning earlier, if we were trying to play that progression of chords, we can say, okay, well, if I'm playing an E chord, even if you're trying to find out the music for a song you're listening to, and you know it's in the key of E, okay, then you can say, well, I bet you one of those progressions is going to be from E to B, right, at some point, if it's, a popular song. Now, if it's Beethoven or some super strange music, they break the rules all the time. But in most popular music, they're going to follow these rules. Okay. So that progression to the fifth is going to be very, very common. Now the other thing is, let's see. Yeah, so the other thing is that you can use this to find scales that are very common to one another. And this is where I just used this circle of fifths today, is because when you're trying to put songs together, let's say you're making a set of music, and I do this all the time because I'm the music director at our church, and so we have, on a Sunday we'll have a list of 4 or 5 songs that we do back to back. And so I'm putting these songs together, and especially when we get towards the end and the songs are slower, it's nice to have those songs in the same key, because when you're transitioning from one song to the next, it's very jarring to the ears to switch keys. It sounds very unnatural to suddenly go from one key to a different key. But sometimes you have to do it because singing is more difficult in that key for the next song or something like that. And so you have to change keys. Well, in that case, this comes in really handy because when you're looking at, let's say, the C again, the C has absolutely no sharps and no flats. Okay. Now, as you go clockwise, we're going to be adding 1 sharp. Okay. So the C scale and the G scale are very similar to each other. The only difference is 1 note. Okay, so a scale has 7 notes in it. The C scale and the G scale are identical except for 1 note, and the G has 1 sharp in it. Okay, so they're very, very close. So if I'm going to be playing a set of music, and like for instance today I was picking out songs. And let's see, I think the second to last song was in G. It was in the key of G. Actually, the last song was in D. It was in the key of D, and I was trying to pick out another song to go with it, but I didn't have another song in D. So I'm looking around, and I'm like, well, if I can find another song that's in the key of G or A, that would be an easy transition to go from D to one of these keys. It would sound more natural because they're very similar. Their scale structure is very similar. And so it's not going to sound very jarring because they all have very similar notes. All the notes are the same except for 1. So it's going to be a very easy transition to go from D to G or from D to A, rather than to go from D to E or D to B flat or something like that. That's way over here. This is going to be very different, very different scale, or especially let's say from D to A flat. Those scales are going to be very different, and it's going to sound very jarring, very strange to the ear to go from this key to this key, right? And so that's one way to use it as well. That you can also use that within a song itself. So sometimes when you're playing a song, you switch keys in the middle of the song. You'll change keys, and so you can use this as well for that sake. If I'm playing a song in E, and then in the middle of the song I want to transition to another key, if I go from E to B, it's going to sound, I can easily make that transition from E to B without making a big mess of the keys, right? So that's another way you can use the circle of fifths as well. Now, another thing, I'm going to get to, if you guys have any questions, you can put it in the chat and I'll get to it in just a second. But the other thing that I really like it for is that all of the chords in a scale are right next to each other. So let's take the key of C again. And if I'm playing a song in the key of C on the guitar, and I'm using the C chord, it starts with the C chord, there are some progressions that are some chords in the C scale that are more common than others. And if you've gotten my chord family cheat sheet, and if you haven't, you can go to the website, go to simplifiedguitar.com, and it's there. The chord family cheat sheet will show you for the G chord family, the E chord family, and the C chord family, that there are 6 chords for each family that are going to be the most common. Now, a scale has seven notes in it, right? But the 7th note of a scale is not very common. It's not going to ever be a dominant player in music. And when you're playing rhythm guitar, you're never going to actually go there. Very seldomly will you ever go there. So that's why we have 6 chords that we learn on the guitar per chord family. Now, if you look here, if you look at the C, you'll notice that there are these chords, these 6 notes all next to each other. C, G, F, A minor, E minor, D. All of these 5 are touching the C, right? And those are the chords that are in the C chord family. Okay, C, G, F, A minor, E minor, and D minor. Okay, so those are the 6 chords in the C chord family. So it's very, very easy to take a look at that and find what are the chords in that family. Okay, and what else is cool is that you can easily find which are the most common chord progressions. Because remember, I just mentioned that that 5th is very common. So C to G is a very common chord progression. So let's say you are trying to figure out the chords for a song. The first thing to do is find out which key it's in. And typically a song is going to start on the key that it's in, right? So the first note that's typically played is going to be the first note of that, the key. And that's not always the case, but most of the time it is. And so if you can find that first note and you figure out, oh, it's in the key of C. So then you can look at this and you can say, of all the other notes that are played, they're probably going to be right here, unless they change keys, okay? So they're all going to be right here. And the ones that are most common, that are the most probable that they're using, are going to be the ones that are directly adjacent to the C, which is going to be G, F, and A minor, okay? Those 3 are going to be the most common in the C chord family. Now, the other 2 can be played in the C chord family, but they're going to be less common, the E minor and the D minor. And you can easily see that visually because they are diagonal. They're touching the C less than the other 3 are, okay? So it's very easy to see that. So if you're trying to figure out the chords of a song and you know it's in C, then first try to figure it out by making those transitions to G, to F, and to A minor. And then if those don't work, then you try E minor and D minor. And if those don't work, then they probably changed keys on you, or you're not in the right key. So that's a great way to use the circle of fifths as well. Okay, so using it, finding the key, and you can also use this when you're writing your own music. So if you want to write it, if you want to write a song, and you want to use the key of E, you can look at this and know that, well, these are the chords that I need to use: E, B, A, C sharp minor, F sharp minor, and G sharp minor. Okay, those are the chords I want to use to write music. Okay, now if you're really good at writing music and you've done it a while, then you can break those rules and you can change keys in the middle of the song. But don't do all that if you're just getting into writing music. Stick to the rules, right? Before you try to break them. So there are thousands of songs that just stick to the rules. So they sound good to our ears, and that's why they're popular, because they stick to the rules. Okay, so let's see. Okay, somebody mentioned minor keys. So yeah, that's the other thing. Okay, so you got these minor keys here. Now, if you look from C minor to A minor, right here, there's a term for this, and I can't think of it right now. But basically, the C and the A minor, they have the exact same notes in terms of their scale. So the C major scale and the A minor scale are made up of the exact same 7 notes. The only difference is where you start. Okay, so the C major scale starts on the C note and goes up. The A minor scale starts on the A note and goes up, all white keys. So it's the exact same scale for C and A minor. Okay, so if you're playing a song in A minor, the next song you can play it in C, and it would be the same exact chord progression, the same exact keys, notes. Or if you're maybe transposing, you can use that. That's another thing to keep in mind is these are the, I can't think of the term right now, but it's the, basically it's the minor of the relative minor. There we go. It's the relative minor, okay? So it's the same thing all the way across. So the E scale and the C sharp minor scale are identical. The D scale and the B minor scale are identical. Okay, so you can look at that across the board and see the relative minor for every major note. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if there's any questions here. Can you use the basics to make music and then add a little more chords? Yeah, well, when you're writing music, I would stick to those 6 chords. I mean, you can make, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of songs that use that. And what really sets them apart is the combination of those and how long, in terms of the tempo, how long these chords are lasting, the combination of them, and the pattern in terms of the strumming or the rhythm. All of that, you put all those different combinations together, there are endless combinations that you can use. And of course, the melody on top of that is going to be different from one song to the next. And the melody is basically what you're singing. That's not going to be on the guitar, on the acoustic guitar, when you're talking about the rhythm guitar. Okay. Going into music writing, that's a whole nother lesson. But I would stick with the 6 chords within a family. That's going to give you more than what you need for writing some really good music. Let's see. Tips for changing chords quickly. I recommend a particular practice called the launching point practice, which is basically if you're having trouble transitioning from, if you're trying to learn a song and there's a particular transition that you're really struggling with, then you need to dissect that transition by itself. Okay, so let's say you're trying to go from, I don't know, from E to like this B right here, B suspended, and you're really struggling making that transition quick enough to not have to stop strumming. Then stop strumming. Don't try to practice the whole song. Just practice this transition by itself, back and forth from E to B, just making a single strum through so that I can make sure I'm pressing the chords right. And just do that over and over again. Set a timer, for 10 minutes or something. And then when your fingers start to hurt, what you can do is practice just the finger placement, which is putting your fingers on the chord and not strumming, not pressing down. You're just practicing muscle memorization. Okay, so I'm putting my hand here and then I'm making the transition and I'm not pressing down. So this way you can actually get in more practice, because a lot of times people stop practicing because their fingers hurt and so they can't practice as much as they want, but you can still get in some good practice just by doing muscle memorization. Okay, so you could do like this and it's going to help your muscles in your finger to memorize these positions and the transition from that troublesome transition that you're having, right? Okay, so let's go on. Show me the B minor, B flat, and D sharp minor. Are you talking about showing you the chords for those? Let's see. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what the chords for rockabilly. I'm not sure what you mean about that. But I can show you B minor. This is the traditional way to play B minor, which is the bar chord. And, you can't get away from that. But if you're playing in the key of G, there's a B minor that's easier to play, which is this. It's not a bar chord. And so basically, I'm holding down the 2nd fret of the A string with my 1st finger, and then I'm letting it mute on purpose the D string. I don't want that D string to resonate, okay? And then I'm pressing down 2nd fret of the B string with my 2nd finger, and then the 3rd fret of the, I'm sorry, that was the G string with my 2nd finger, 2nd fret. And then 3rd fret of the B and E string with my 3rd and 4th finger. So now it doesn't sound that great by itself. That's why you can't use this B minor in any other key. It only fits in the key of G when you're playing in the key of G. Okay, but when you're playing a song, I don't know if you guys can even hear my guitar, but if you're playing a song in the key of G and you go to that B minor, it sounds great in that key. Okay, because they have similarities with each other. All these notes are common, and so it makes for easy transitions and it sounds good together. okay? But you're not going to be able to use that B minor in the key of D, let's say. So just keep that in mind. There's some tutorials I have on my song library that I use that chord in. Just you can narrow your search down in the song library to the key of G, and just find some of those that use this chord, so you can hear what it sounds like. It does work very well in the G chord family. But if you're not in there, you're going to have to use the bar chord B minor, which is like this. Cool. Great. All right. Well, that's it then. If there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and sign out for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and don't forget you can get the this diagram by clicking on the link, or you can just Google search it and find it that way. All right, guys, y'all take care, and I will see y'all later. Bye.